The night was silent, except for the faint whisper of wind over the ruined towers of the Dragon Kingdom. Once this place had been alive with fire and flight, a city of golden spires and roaring wings. Now it lay in ash and shadow, the pride of generations reduced to crumbling stone. Amid the devastation, a lone figure moved carefully across the jagged streets. A dragon king, his scales dulled and marred from countless battles. His massive wings drooped, each beat heavy with fatigue. He had ruled for centuries, commanding armies, shaping alliances, and striking fear into all who opposed him. Now all that remained was memory and sorrow. Other dragons stayed far from him. They whispered in the skies above, wary of his temper and haunted by his legend. They had survived the war that had toppled his rule, yet none dared approach. The king felt the emptiness pressing against his chest. For the first time, fear had found him, not of enemies but of solitude. He walked slowly over the cracked stone, claws scraping against the rubble, a sound sharp in the quiet night. His eyes, glowing faintly like embers, scanned every shadow. The ruins were familiar, yet alien, and every step reminded him of what he had lost. Then a scent caught his attention. A small, foreign smell, light and unafraid, drifted through the cold air. It was faint, but it pulled his gaze downward. There, at the edge of a shattered plaza, stood a human. Small, fragile, yet upright, the human did not run, even as the dragon's shadow fell across the ground. Most dragons would have seen this figure as prey, or at the very least, an intruder. But something about the human's calm, measured stance intrigued the king. He had not felt curiosity in years, and it stirred in his ancient chest, mingling with the weariness. The human looked up and met his gaze without fear. Their eyes were wide, reflecting both the moonlight and the dragon's own image. Instead of cowering or shouting, they simply held their ground. The Dragon King lowered his massive head slightly, nostrils flaring to catch the human scent more clearly. It was unlike anything he had encountered, earthy, strange, and yet oddly comforting. He flexed his claws, considering whether to attack, but his instincts were tempered by centuries of wisdom. He sensed no threat here, only presence. And for reasons he could not name, he felt a glimmer of something he had long forgotten: hope. The human took a careful step forward. Their hands were empty, their posture open. The dragon's instincts urged caution, yet he did not move. Instead, he watched as the human slowly produced a small bundle from beneath their cloak. It was simple, ordinary by human standards, yet in the eyes of a dragon it radiated importance. The human set it down gently on the ground. Whatever it was, the human treated it with care and respect, as if it held the weight of the world. The Dragon King blinked, uncertainty mixing with interest. Why would such a tiny, fragile creature act without fear in his presence? And why did his ancient heart respond with something other than hunger or anger? Above, the ruined spires echoed with the faint sounds of distant wings. Other dragons were aware of this encounter, but none dared intervene. They hovered in the darkness, watching their once great king, knowing he was drawn to the human in a way they could not understand. Even in their silence, there was tension, a quiet acknowledgement that something extraordinary was happening. The Dragon King, so accustomed to commanding and dominating, found himself still, studying this human as if they held a secret that could only be revealed through patience and observation. The wind shifted, carrying the faint scent of smoke and ash, a reminder of the destruction that had fallen across the kingdom. Yet, despite the desolation, a strange warmth touched the dragon's chest. It was small, fragile, yet undeniable. The human, unaware of the power and history that loomed above them, moved slowly, carefully, as if negotiating space with a creature that could crush them with a single swipe. And in that cautious dance, a connection formed, not through words, not through force, but through quiet acknowledgement. The Dragon King's massive eyes softened, the usual glare of command replaced by curiosity tinged with something like trust. He lowered himself closer, each movement deliberate, wings folding in to avoid alarming the human. Their gaze met again, and the Dragon King saw nothing but calm reflection staring back. The ruins seemed to fade around them, the echoes of battle and loss quieted by this fragile encounter. He had been alone for centuries, his rule ended, his power diminished, yet here was a creature that did not flee, did not challenge, and did not bow. Instead, they simply were, and that, in itself, was a miracle. The night stretched on, stars twinkling above like distant fires. The Dragon King, once feared across galaxies, felt a strange and foreign sensation: patience. He did not move to strike, nor to roar. He did not demand allegiance or force obedience. He simply remained, massive form grounded amid ruins, watching the human as they knelt beside the small bundle, adjusting it with care. For the first time in countless years, the Dragon King felt something like peace. And he knew deep in his bones that this encounter, so quiet, so ordinary in human terms, would change the course of his night, perhaps even his life. The wind carried away the faint sound of distant wings, leaving only the dragon and the human in the cold, ruined plaza. And though neither spoke, both understood. Something new, fragile and powerful had begun. The human moved slowly, deliberately, aware of the dragon's immense presence. Every step was careful, yet fearless. The snow crunched softly beneath their boots, and each breath formed a small cloud in the cold air. The Dragon King's eyes followed them, glowing faintly in the darkness. He had faced armies, storms, and countless foes, yet this tiny figure held a power he could not name. There was no trembling, no panic, only quiet courage. It drew him in, stirring memories of when he had once trusted his instincts to guide him wisely. The human reached the small bundle they had placed earlier. It was a fragile-looking toy, now flickering with faint lights and emitting gentle, melodic sounds. The dragon's massive head lowered closer to inspect it, scales brushing lightly against the wind. He had seen many treasures in his long life, gems that could blind, weapons that could destroy worlds, but this small, simple thing held more meaning than any of them. It represented trust, and in the presence of this human, it seemed almost sacred. The human knelt beside the toy and spoke softly, words incomprehensible to the dragon yet filled with care and patience. Their voice was calm, steady and confident, cutting through the chill and the tension in the air. They adjusted the device gently, fingers moving with delicate precision. The Dragon King tilted his massive head, curious. Few beings had dared to approach him with such confidence. Most would either flee or bow in fear. This one, however, faced him with quiet dignity, showing respect without submission. It was a concept long forgotten by the king, yet it resonated deeply within him. He flexed his claws slightly, causing the ice and rubble beneath him to tremble. The human flinched for a fraction of a second but did not retreat. Instead, they took a careful step forward, maintaining their calm. The dragon's instincts urged caution. Centuries of battles and betrayals had taught him that creatures smaller than him often carried danger or deceit. Yet he sensed nothing but honesty in their actions. The courage of this human was different. It was not loud or boastful, but steady, unshakable, and genuine. The wind shifted, carrying faint sounds of distant dragons, the guardians who had been watching from above. Their eyes were wide with disbelief. Never had they seen a human approach a dragon of such magnitude without trembling or panic. Even the ancient Dragon King, whose roar could shatter stone and whose gaze could instill fear across miles, remained unchallenged. Yet, here was a human who approached calmly, not with weapons or pleas, but with quiet resolve. The guardians whispered among themselves, a mixture of fear and awe filling the night sky. The human carefully picked up the toy, holding it close to their chest as if it were a treasure beyond measure. They glanced at the Dragon King, not with fear but with acknowledgement. The king, in turn, lowered his massive head further, his eyes narrowing slightly, studying the figure before him. He could feel their heartbeat, steady and strong, and it resonated in the cold air. For the first time in centuries he felt a strange sense of respect. Not demanded but earned. The human's courage had reached across species, across generations and touched something deep within him. The night stretched on, and the human moved slowly, placing the toy in a safer spot on the plaza. Every movement was deliberate, careful not to startle the dragon. The king watched, fascinated by the precision and care. He had ruled with fear, strength and power for centuries, yet here was a being who commanded attention through calmness and resolve. It was a lesson that no battle, no conquest had ever taught him. The human's courage was quiet but undeniable, and it shifted the balance in the dragon's mind. A faint smile touched the corner of the human's mouth as they finally stood upright. Their eyes met the Dragon King's once more, and in that silent exchange the air seemed to change. The snow fell gently around them, untouched by panic or aggression. The Dragon King's massive form lowered slightly, wings folding in to reduce their intimidating presence. He did not bow nor did he roar. He simply acknowledged the human, understanding that courage could take many forms, and that bravery did not always roar. Sometimes it whispered softly in the face of overwhelming power. From above the guardians watched, still amazed. They had never seen a human confront a dragon with such composure. The king too felt something shift inside him, a stirring of something he had long thought lost, trust. It was fragile, untested, and new, but it existed nonetheless. The human had crossed the invisible line between fear and respect, earning a place in the king's awareness without force or demand. It was a remarkable feat, and even the ancient dragon could recognize it. The wind carried the faint scent of the human's presence, mingling with the icy air of the ruined kingdom. The Dragon King lowered himself to a crouch, keeping his gaze fixed on the small figure before him. The human's courage had proven itself not through battle or threat, but through quiet, unshakable composure. It was a strength that rivaled the might of armies and the power of fire. And in that moment the king understood. This human was not just another creature to pass by, they were someone extraordinary. For the first time in a long time the Dragon King felt a sense of calm. He did not move closer, nor did he retreat. He simply observed, allowing the human's presence to fill the silent plaza. And though neither spoke, both understood that something significant had begun. The human's courage had pierced the walls of legend and fear, reaching the heart of a creature who had known nothing but power and solitude for centuries. In the quiet of the ruined kingdom, a bond of respect began to form, built not on fear but on bravery, trust, and an understanding that transcended species. The snow continued to fall, blanketing the plaza in soft white. The human turned once more, glancing back at the Dragon King, their expression calm and steady. And the king, massive and ancient, watched them go with a new awareness. Courage had come in an unexpected form tonight, and the Dragon King, who had survived centuries of war and betrayal, knew that this encounter would leave its mark forever. A silent understanding had begun, a connection born of bravery, patience, and quiet respect, one that neither time nor distance could erase. The human moved through the icy ruins with steady steps, carrying a simple pack filled with tools and supplies. The Dragon King followed silently, massive claws leaving deep marks in the frozen ground, wings tucked to avoid knocking over the fragile ruins. For the first time in centuries, the dragon felt a strange mixture of curiosity and trust. The human bore no weapons, no fear, and no demands. Instead, they carried small burdens, a bundle of supplies, careful tools, and an unwavering determination to act where others had long given up. The dragon observed every movement, the weight of his centuries-old experiences pressing against him, yet slowly yielding to this new presence. The wind howled across the jagged spires of ice and stone, but the human kept walking undeterred. The Dragon King noted the quiet strength in their steps. It was not just courage that allowed this human to move freely among the ruins, it was resolve. They balanced their burdens carefully, avoiding the weak ice patches and hidden cracks. When the dragon tried to step close, the human adjusted, ensuring the king's massive tail and claws did not endanger their careful path. It was a dance of trust and respect, each learning how to exist in the presence of the other without harm. The human paused near a collapsed arch, kneeling to examine a broken structure. They ran fingers over sharp metal fragments and splintered stone, muttering softly as if speaking to the ruins themselves. The dragon lowered his massive head, smoke curling from his nostrils, observing the delicate care. He had destroyed and rebuilt kingdoms in his life, yet the human handled this ruin with more precision and respect than he had seen from any warrior. It was a small, quiet act, but it impressed him deeply. This was not the reckless bravery of youth or the overconfidence of soldiers. It was measured, thoughtful, and enduring. Suddenly, a deep groan echoed from beneath the snow. A weak wall had shifted, threatening to collapse entirely. The human acted without hesitation, lifting a metal beam and bracing the structure. The dragon shifted his massive weight to assist, carefully nudging the debris with his claws, moving in tandem with the human's small but deliberate motions. For the first time, the dragon realized that sharing burdens did not require words or understanding of each other's language. It required intention and care. They were two different beings, yet in that moment they became a team. The human wiped sweat and frost from their brow, glancing up at the dragon. Their eyes met, and the dragon sensed a silent question. "Can you trust me to hold your weight as I trust you to hold mine?" The Dragon King exhaled slowly, the sound like a small storm, and nodded. Though he could crush this human in an instant, he chose not to. The bond was growing, quiet but undeniable. Together, they moved through the ruins, the dragon's immense power complementing the human's careful precision. Obstacles that would have taken hours alone were cleared swiftly. The human adjusted tools, braced weak walls, and guided the dragon around fragile spots. The dragon moved with grace he had not exercised in centuries, mindful of every step for the sake of their shared goal. Time passed and the snowstorm softened. The human and the dragon paused near a hollowed-out tower, the wind no longer threatening to undo their careful work. The human knelt to rest, hands brushing the ice-covered ground, and the dragon curled nearby, wings folding protectively around himself without overshadowing the human. They shared this quiet moment without words. The dragon felt the weight of years, battles and loneliness ease slightly in the presence of this small creature who had dared to share their burdens without fear. The Dragon King flexed his claws, testing the ice beneath them, and the human adjusted, guiding him to firmer ground. They worked in sync, not through spoken commands but through understanding. Every glance, every movement spoke volumes. They were learning each other's limits, strengths and intentions. The human carried tools, hope and resilience, while the dragon carried power, wisdom and protection. Both had burdens and now both bore them together. The human stood, stretching after their long labor, and glanced up at the dragon. The dragon lowered his massive head in acknowledgement. There was no need for words. The understanding was complete. Shared burdens had formed a bridge between them, linking strength with care, power with precision, and instinct with intelligence. The dragon had expected fear, chaos, or weakness but found none. Instead, he found resilience, patience, and courage in a form he had never encountered. As the sun broke through the clouds, casting a pale light over the ruins, the human began gathering the last of their tools. The dragon followed, hovering close, wings extended for balance, tail sweeping gently behind. Together they left the hollow tower, moving forward into the snow-covered expanse. Every step was measured, every movement synchronized. In that cold and desolate place, the impossible had happened. Two very different beings had learned to carry the weight of survival together. The dragon's mind, long hardened by centuries of solitude and combat, began to open. He realized that strength was not only in power but also in willingness to share, to trust, and to act with another's needs in mind. The human had shown him that bravery was not always loud or destructive. Sometimes it was quiet, careful, and patient, and it could forge bonds stronger than any battle victories or treasures. By the time the horizon blushed with the faint colors of dawn, the human and dragon reached the edge of the frozen expanse. They paused, surveying what they had accomplished together. Neither spoke, but both knew something profound had occurred. Shared burdens had created respect, understanding, and an unspoken promise. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it side by side. In the frozen wasteland, where death had once seemed inevitable, hope had been restored, not by force but by cooperation and trust. The dragon flexed his wings, testing the air, and the human looked up without fear. The bond of shared struggle had been sealed. Two different species, two different lifetimes, yet in that moment they were equal partners, each relying on the other in ways neither had anticipated. The dragon's heart, once closed, felt the stirrings of something long forgotten: companionship, trust, and a sense that even in the harshest cold, life could be carried together. The snow swirled violently, whipping across the jagged cliffs, but the human moved steadily, every step deliberate. Behind them, the dragon followed, massive wings tucked, claws scraping lightly against the ice. The wind was harsh, the cold biting, yet the human's face showed no fear, only determination. The dragon had never seen such calm in a creature so small, and curiosity pulled him closer, urging him to follow and observe. Ahead, the remains of a fallen bridge stretched across a deep chasm. Ice-coated planks swayed, groaning under even the smallest weight. Other humans or any other species would have stopped, turned back, or tried to find another path. But this human merely paused, examining the planks carefully. Their eyes scanned each piece of wood and metal, measuring, calculating, and considering every possible risk. The dragon shifted beside them, silently, as if waiting for the human to make the first move. The humans set down their pack, pulling out a small toolkit. With careful hands, they began to reinforce the planks with simple adjustments, hammering broken supports and securing loose boards. The dragon leaned closer, watching intently. Each strike of the hammer echoed across the canyon, yet the dragon felt no anger, no threat. The human's movements were precise, patient, and fearless. Here, the choice to act rather than retreat showed courage beyond what brute strength could accomplish. A crack suddenly sounded beneath the dragon's claw. The ice trembled slightly, and for a moment, instinct screamed at the dragon to strike, to flee, to protect what was within his reach. But the human's steady hands and calm voice halted him. "It's okay," they whispered, not to the dragon but to the precarious structure itself. "Just one step at a time. Easy." The words carried no fear, no panic, only assurance. The dragon realized then that the human strength was not in muscle or magic, but in choice. The choice to remain calm and act carefully even when danger was immediate. The human tested the first plank, pressing down lightly. Held. They smiled faintly, adjusting another piece. The dragon shifted his massive body closer, ready to lend support but trusting that the human knew exactly what they were doing. Trust. It was a simple word, yet one the dragon had not given willingly in centuries. And now he had no choice but to trust, for his enormous body could break the bridge with a single misstep, and the human's life depended on his restraint. As the human advanced onto the bridge, each step measured and sure, the dragon followed, keeping just enough distance to not endanger them. The wind tore at their clothes and scales alike, yet neither faltered. They moved together like partners in a careful dance. The human's calmness steadied the dragon's instincts. Normally, the scent of danger would have sent him into defensive rage, but now he matched his steps to the human's, moving as if guided by their intent. Midway across the bridge, a gust stronger than any before tore through the canyon. The planks swayed violently, groaning under pressure. The dragon tensed, ready to act, yet the human only slowed, adjusting balance and carefully stepping. "We can do this," the human said softly, more to themselves than to the dragon. Those simple words, uttered without fear, filled the dragon with an unfamiliar certainty. Choice was everything. He could act rashly, using sheer power to force them across, or he could trust the human's careful steps, allowing the bridge to carry both of them safely. Choosing trust, the dragon shifted slightly, letting the human take the lead. They moved as one, each step a negotiation of strength and patience. The human paused at the most dangerous plank, testing it with a light tap, then nodded to themselves before continuing. The dragon's tail swept gently behind him, steadying the bridge where it was weakest. He had made his choice, to follow and protect without interfering unnecessarily, allowing the human to lead the way. The final stretch approached, the edge of the bridge reaching the solid ground across the chasm. A sudden crack sounded again, sharper this time. The dragon tensed instinctively, ready to grab and lift the human to safety, but the human only glanced back and smiled. "Almost there," they said. That small word, full of confidence and trust, reassured the dragon. He exhaled slowly, matching his steps perfectly to theirs, and together they crossed safely. On the other side, the human crouched to adjust their pack, brushing frost from their jacket. The dragon lowered his massive head, smoke curling from his nostrils in a gesture of acknowledgement. The choice had been made. The human had chosen courage and precision, and the dragon had chosen trust. Both choices had carried them safely across a danger that might have broken either of them alone. In that moment, they understood each other not as predator and prey, not as creature and human, but as beings willing to meet danger with resolve and cooperation. The sun peeked over the horizon, casting a pale gold light over the snow and ice. The human looked up at the dragon, eyes meeting, and no words were needed. They had made their choices, and those choices had formed a bond. The dragon realized that power alone was meaningless without the wisdom to use it wisely, and the human understood that courage sometimes meant asking for trust and giving it in return. As they continued their journey across the frozen wasteland, the wind still harsh but no longer threatening, the dragon felt a weight lift from his chest. Shared struggles, careful decisions, and the simple choice to trust had created something stronger than any weapon or magic. The human's courage had been quiet, steady, and deliberate, a lesson the dragon would never forget. By the time the cliffs gave way to open plains, both dragon and human moved forward with renewed purpose. The choice to act with caution, to trust, and to lead without fear had shaped the outcome of the day. The dragon flexed his wings, testing the air lightly, and the human followed, tools and pack secured, ready for whatever lay ahead. Together they had made the choice that mattered most, to face danger side by side, each respecting the strength and wisdom of the other. The first light of dawn stretched over the icy plains, painting the snow in soft shades of pink and gold. The human walked steadily, boots crunching in the frost, with the dragon gliding beside them, wings tucked but muscles ready. The night had been long, filled with uncertainty and the biting cold, but now, under the rising sun, there was clarity. Danger had passed, and a new beginning unfolded. The dragon paused at the edge of a frozen river, watching the human carefully examine the ice. Normally, the river would be a hazard, the surface thin and treacherous, but the human moved with confidence, testing each step, bending low to feel the strength of the ice beneath. The dragon mirrored the human's patience, stepping softly, aware that their combined choices would determine safety. The air smelled fresh and clean, a promise of possibilities. "Almost there," the human said quietly, voice carrying calm across the frozen landscape. The dragon let out a low rumble, acknowledging the statement, a sound of trust and respect. They had faced fear together, balanced instinct with reason, and now stood on the edge of a new day. The wind no longer felt threatening, it carried the quiet strength of survival and understanding. As they continued, distant shapes appeared across the snow, other creatures curious and cautious watching the dragon-human pair. In the past, dragons alone would have been feared, avoided by all who saw them. Now, with the human beside him, the dragon moved with a new purpose, neither dominating nor yielding, simply existing as part of a team forged in shared struggle. The human's calm courage had become a guiding force, a bridge between species and instincts. The human stopped at a ridge overlooking a valley below. Snow-laden trees stretched as far as the eye could see, and the rising sun glittered on the ice and frost, creating patterns of light that danced in the dragon's eyes. The dragon lowered his massive head closer to the human, nostrils flaring in a gentle exhale. It was a gesture of acknowledgement, of gratitude, of recognition that the human's presence had changed him. No words were spoken, none were needed. The bond was silent but unbreakable. The human carefully unpacked a small meal, simple bread and dried fruit, placing it on a flat rock. "Eat," they said softly, offering some to the dragon. The dragon hesitated for a moment, then nudged the food gently with his snout. It was not hunger that guided him but a desire to follow the human's example, to participate in this new ritual of trust and companionship. Eating together, side by side, symbolized more than survival, it was respect and understanding shared in the simplest way. As the meal ended, the humans stood, brushing frost from their coat, eyes scanning the horizon. The dragon stretched his wings, muscles flexing, wings catching the early light. Then, slowly, with a grace unexpected for his size, he took off, gliding over the valley with the human following on foot, steady and unafraid. For the first time, the dragon experienced freedom in the company of another, and the human felt a thrill not of conquest but of partnership. Below, the valley opened into a network of paths through frozen streams and forests. The human led the way carefully but with purpose, showing the dragon that speed was not always strength, that patience and observation could guide them safely through unknown terrain. The dragon adapted, learning to trust instincts to follow the human's lead. Their movements became a rhythm, a shared understanding that went beyond words or species. Along the journey, small signs of life appeared, a hare darting across a snow-covered field, birds taking flight from the treetops. The dragon paused, watching, then looked back at the human. A low rumble escaped him, a sound of awe and acknowledgement. The human smiled faintly, gesturing to the life around them. "It's all part of this world," they said softly, voice steady. "We're just visitors learning to move carefully." The dragon nodded, understanding more than the words could convey. As the sun climbed higher, casting warmth over the snow, the dragon finally landed on a rise, curling his massive body around the human protectively. It was not fear but care, the same way the human had shown patience and caution. Together they looked out over the valley, silent and steady, knowing that the choices of the past, courage, trust and patience, had created this moment. The human's calm had tamed more than the dragon's fear, it had forged respect and partnership. In the distance, new horizons waited, filled with challenges and wonders alike. The human adjusted their pack, preparing for the next journey, while the dragon flexed his wings, testing the air. Each knew the other's strengths now, each had seen the courage and wisdom that could only come from the heart. They had crossed dangers together, shared meals, and found understanding in a world that once seemed hostile and indifferent. The first day of this new era was ending, but its promise stretched into the future. Dragons and humans, predator and companion, learned that trust could overcome fear, patience could guide strength, and calm courage could change destinies. The valley below sparkled in the sunset, reflecting a world where choices mattered, and bonds could be forged beyond instinct and species. The human sat on a snow-covered rock, looking up at the dragon perched nearby. The wind carried a soft warmth now, a sign that even in cold, harsh places, new beginnings were possible. The dragon lowered his head, resting it near the human's shoulder, a silent pact of loyalty and understanding. Together they would face the world, not as master and subordinate, not as human and beast, but as equals, bound by shared experiences and mutual respect. And so, with the sun setting behind the mountains, a new dawn truly began. The human and the dragon remained side by side, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that together, they had forged a bond that could endure anything. In their silent companionship, the world seemed less cold, less dangerous, and filled with infinite possibilities. A new chapter had begun, and it would be written by courage, trust, and the unbreakable connection between them.